Well, it looks like we have hit at least the number of people that pre-registered, but several more may choose to join us during the meeting. So, and we're also recording this today. So if anyone misses this initial portion, you'll be able to watch it back on our YouTube page. But good afternoon, everyone that's joining us. My name is Will Snyder, Project Implementation Planner for the CRTPO and Project Manager for our Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. We are really excited to really begin kicking off more of the external pieces of our Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, or our CSAP as we're calling it for short. And I'm joined here this morning by a few other colleagues from CRTPO staff. So Jennifer Stafford, Judy Dellert, Merritt McCulley, Emily Gerganis. Thank you all for being here from CRTPO. But I am co-presenting today with Matt Marr. Matt, if you want to introduce yourself from the consultant side of the project.
Yeah, my name is Matt Marr. I have 18 years of experience in the area of traffic engineering and transportation planning, and I am the consultant project manager for the study. Great to be here. I, as well, am excited because what could be more important than making our roadways safer? And so your participation in this effort is key. So just as we get started, other housekeeping stuff, please add your name and agency or organization into the chat, and there will be ability to address questions towards the end of our time, where we'll have Q&A, and yeah, we do anticipate a lot of participation, so when we do get to that Q&A time towards the end of our presentation, we just ask that you would raise your hand so we can take time to go turn by turn through everyone. Although I will say that a lot of people do have their mics muted by default. I don't know if we can remove that. And if such is the case, we'll just answer the questions as they pop up in order in the chat. Most importantly, want to obtain a yes from you if you are indeed interested after hearing our pitch for your participation in our Transportation Safety Task Force. We'll want your yes in the chat once you have decided, yes, I do want to participate in the Transportation Safety Task Force group for this overall project. So once Will and I get started, we'll explain more what this project is about and what your responsibility will be for this project.
Thank you, Matt. And I just removed I guess the block on microphones and cameras. So yeah, at the end, if it's easier for you to come off mute and ask your question, please feel free.
Perfect.
Okay. Go ahead and roll right in. Next slide, please. So I'll go ahead and kick us off. Realize many of you have interacted with us or are members of our technical coordinating committee or other committees within the CRTPO. But for those of you that we're welcoming to this group for the first time, just kind of want to provide a little overview of who we are and what our organization does. So the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization, or CRTPO for short, is the federally designated metropolitan planning organization for the Charlotte urban area. And as you can see on the screen there, our urban area covers 3 counties, including Iredell, Mecklenburg, and the urban portion of Union County that you see in orange on the screen. And our process is really contingent on planning, programming, and funding projects according to the 3C transportation planning process, which lays out that should be continuing, cooperative, and comprehensive. That's a federal process, but if we were to have a North Star as an organization, a lot of what we do orients around that 3C process. The CSAP, as we're about to preview, very much included as part of that work. And so really as an impetus for why we are pursuing better traffic safety improvements and more proactive traffic safety planning as an organization is really because of this pretty sobering statistic on our screen, which is that every week in our planning area, more than 12 people are killed or seriously injured in crashes on our streets. And that may be a combination of folks within their vehicles or using our transportation network as a pedestrian or a bicyclist, or any type of user really from the moment that you're stepping out of your door and using our transportation network. And we really need a comprehensive coalition to help address this issue. We have several member jurisdictions in the planning area that are currently working on their own Vision Zero plans or have adopted one in the last couple of years. Fantastic, very important efforts for our members locally, but we realize that there's many more of our members that need assistance developing this work locally, and also just generally have a need for this to have a regional vision and linkage to some regional priorities. Because as an organization, we have some resources that we can put towards certain projects in our prioritization process, also working with NCDOT. We want to be able to scale and leverage those limited resources to help reduce the statistic that we have on the screen, and something that's occurring way more often than it should be on our streets. Next slide. So as I just previewed, North Carolina crash rates are rising. There's actually some good news in terms of that statistic, and Matt will show that a little bit later, that we're actually starting to find ourselves on a plateau of not quite the rate of increases of crashes that we've been seeing the last few years. But nonetheless, we have a very significant number of crashes that are taking place. And as I just mentioned, we don't really have a system today to help inventory or prioritize what that looks like in our planning area. So we have those local efforts, but we don't have that one unified regional effort or tool. And yep, that hits on that second bullet there. And so as an organization, we're really positioned to convene those local staff, those regional decision makers, and those state decision makers on an issue like traffic safety. We already do so through our technical coordinating committee, which is a group of staff that convene once a month to review and recommend policy and funding decisions, ultimately recommending that to our board, a group of elected leaders from across our member jurisdictions and across our planning area. We want to leverage those kinds of avenues to really take advantage as much as possible of this traffic safety conversation and make sure that we're all on the same page about what our priorities and strategies are. And as an organization, we have a lot more that we can do to embed traffic safety into how we fund and program and set a design standard for the projects that we are seeing and interacting with our members. And so that includes our member jurisdictions, but also engaging NCDOT on projects that for the most part are taking place on state-owned roads, and as the data will show, carries a substantial number of our serious crashes across the planning area and across the state. Next slide, please. So Matt, you're going to go ahead and chat about some of the crash data.
Yeah, thanks, Will. And that was a great background. And it sets up, well, the big question, how are we doing? Where are we at with our crashes? And this is just a 5-year snapshot of crashes within the CRTPO planning region. So by and large, the Charlotte metropolitan area. And as you go 2020 in the top right corner of the screen, 2020 to 2024, you can see that plateauing effect. When we take a look at crash data, we can say that when we're looking at a crash data set this large, it becomes more statistically significant than the more jagged set you're seeing in the bottom right corner of the screen, which has more to do with our fatal and serious injury crash counts per year. But the safe system approach, which we'll get to speaking to later in this presentation, is what we really want to direct our attention to, which is the chart on the bottom right corner of the screen. How are we doing with reducing those fatal and serious injury crashes? And just to let you know what a serious injury crash is, it likely involves a trip to the hospital. It involves someone leaving the scene of a crash with their lives permanently changed. It's very gruesome. And so we usually categorize and lump these two together because essentially you were inches away from death in some of the cases of these serious injury crashes. And while they are a fairly small share of the crashes going on, this accounts for a majority of the crash cost that is generated within the CRTPO region. Because when we unfortunately when we get to brass tacks of evaluating what each crash costs our society as a whole, if it's a fatal crash, it's on the tune of multi-million dollars per incident, whereas a property damage only crash is roughly about $10,000 per incident. So we want to draw our attention based on our current nationally approved safe system approach on those fatal and serious injury crashes. And if you look year on year, it's a lot. We're averaging above 500 of these occurrences per year. And so you get around the order of billions of dollars of crash costs per year. And that gets us and NCDOT and others to say, if the crash costs are that staggering, that high, what can we spend? What can we invest in right now to reduce that number for the greater good? And looking at who's overrepresented in these types of crashes, if you look at the bottom right corner of this next slide, even though pedestrian and bicycle crashes only make a total of roughly 1% of crashes that occur on roadways within the CRTPO area, they make up more than 10 times, 16.4% of fatal and serious injury crashes. And so since these modes are particularly susceptible to fatal and serious injury crashes, we also want to put a special highlight on them and, of course, spotlight those statistics for you as potential members of our Transportation Safety Task Force. So these efforts are funded through the federal Safe Streets and Roads for All program. Will and the folks at CRTPO rightly saw their crash statistics, rising rates, and the potential for improvement, and applied for federal funds, which they were joyfully awarded. And the main, the bottom line here is we're looking to take that first step with this study. This study is a safety action plan, which just takes this first step of taking a look at this metropolitan Charlotte area and understanding community issues, improving safety by eliminating fatal and serious injury crashes, and applying the safe system approach, which we'll talk more about in a bit, both on a systemic basis, systemic meaning area-wide, what can we be doing? What can we be programming to generally be applied on every single lane mile within the metropolitan region? And then location specific, what is the crash data bearing out? What is the roadway risk data bearing out as locations that really need our attention and focus for safety investments? So a safety action plan is in and of itself tied to safety benefits. And you see the graphic on the right side of the screen. Conducting one of these resulted in a 25% reduction in county road fatalities in Minnesota. We had a 35% reduction in severe curve crashes in a county out in Washington. And so this is a proven safety countermeasure, in addition to others we'll be studying as part of the safety action plan. But this is just the first step in order to get to all those other countermeasures that are identified by the Federal Highway Administration as proven, as effective. And so we have a lot of safety improvements awaiting us that have a high return on investment, a proven way to reduce fatalities and serious injuries. And we want to work with you to plan those and eventually even get to grant awards of those same improvements so you can construct those same improvements within your communities. These safety action plans seek to improve safety by formalizing official public commitment through Vision Zero. So there's an accountability there. You're committing to something and you're showing your constituents that you are. We're going to be establishing a committee and task force to be convened on a semi-annual basis, even going beyond the length of the study to oversee the safety action plan. This is safety is much like freedom. It's the price is eternal vigilance. And so this is going to be an effort that does not conclude with this study, but that continues on for the foreseeable future. And so as part of that task force, which we're starting with our transportation safety task force, we're going to be reviewing crash data trends and risk factors, reviewing policies, plans, and guidelines, engaging with your community. So we're doing the region-wide community, but your municipal community, your county community as a whole, as well, to see what's going on, what are their concerns, and incorporating that into safety improvements that we're proposing. And that goes to those projects and strategies. And then, of course, monitoring, evaluating. This does not stop with this effort. It continues on. So with that, I'll turn it back to Will to talk about what we've mentioned consistently throughout this presentation, which is the federally approved safe system approach.
Thank you, Matt. So as part of this process, we're really keeping ourselves in line with federal best practices. And so the safe system approach, if you've worked in traffic safety or have just generally engaged in any sort of traffic safety events or read any articles, you may have heard of the safe system approach. This really builds upon and kind of reinvents what was formerly focused on engineering, education, and enforcement. So kind of the three E's of traffic safety that were previously supported by the federal government as a way to ensure that we're reducing crashes. That system was effective in certain ways. So a lot of times you found that enforcement may have helped stop speeding for a period of time, but didn't really think about the system as a whole, why speeds were occurring, why crashes were occurring at high speeds. Just as an example. So the safe system approach really rethinks that whole concept by looking at every aspect of the system. So you can see in those green boxes there on the screen, you're looking at what do safe road users look like? Regardless of how you travel, what does that experience look like? Whether you're in a vehicle or riding a scooter or using a wheelchair or pushing a stroller, any aspect of that lived experience on the system should be safe for you as a user. And your behavior on the system should be as such. Looking at safe vehicles, so predictive crash technology that you see in a lot of newer cars. Certainly autonomous vehicles can be part of that conversation as well, but also looking at vehicle sizes and generally connecting that to the built environment. Looking at safe speeds, so just fundamentally, what does kinetic energy do in a crash? So when you're going at a very high rate of speed, how can even reducing posted speed limits by even 5 miles per hour save a life or additionally reduce the number of injuries that take place at a crash? Safe roads, so that's looking more at the built environment, a lot of the design elements that we think of, again, as a planning organization, but also as engineers and planners thinking about safe road design and some of the built environment countermeasures that you can add to just make the environment more comfortable to walk or bike or even drive, right? Certain intersections, navigating certain parts of the road network as a driver even can be especially dangerous or risky. And then post-crash care. So this really focuses more on what does first response look like immediately after a crash, keeping the scene safe during that period of time, but then also ensuring that victims are cared for beyond that crash. So that accounts for maybe unreported injuries, folks that may choose later on to go to a hospital, an ER, or their physician to look at an injury that they maybe realized they had longer after their crash occurred. So it kind of builds this redundant system of every layer of safety in the system is accounted for. And around the ring are some important kind of principles with that. So we're being more proactive. We're building a redundant system so that if one part of the system fails or doesn't do what it needs, then there's other parts that can back that up. Perfect example being if you're involved in a crash, maybe again, speed is reduced so that if the crash still occurs, you're not injured, but maybe it's just your car has some damage to it. It's kind of that building that redundant system, but acknowledges that humans are vulnerable. Again, thinking about kinetic energy and just the really force that the human body can withstand within a crash is very limited in nature, but that we also make mistakes. So human behavior is human behavior, and we need to build a system that accounts for that and has buffers and the ability to account for those vulnerabilities within those mistakes. So again, as Matt mentioned earlier, that's really part of the policy commitment and part of the framework. Also, as Matt mentioned earlier, so we applied for and were awarded $3.15 million in federal funding to support this effort. Also, some funds from NCDOT, $500,000 to support some of the match and some of the burden on our members to be able to support this project. And we received broad support from our board, from our staff. I really want to emphasize the partnerships and collaboration we've had up to this point. Many of our member communities are very excited for this process to start, and they have been along with us every step of the way of crafting this project. So we've been really grateful to our member communities for their partnership, and we're proud to say that this is the largest planning award out of the Safe Streets program in North Carolina. Next slide. So a couple of key deliverables, and I'll be pretty brief about this as well, but I think it's best to rationalize this into 3 different buckets. So this plan will be developing a policy framework, as Matt mentioned earlier, really having that policy commitment to what does our priority and our strategy look like as an organization and as a region to reduce serious crashes. So that'll be in the form of some policy language that our board will opt to adopt. Our member communities can also opt to adopt language out of that locally to make that commitment more localized. That'll be baked into our regional CSAP document that allows some MPO strategies to be implemented. Again, thinking about those regional tools and resources and limited resources that we have, and really provide that cut sheet to allow a individual plan to be adoptable for each local member jurisdiction if they don't have one today. Then we focus more traditionally, I think what Vision Zero is seen as is being a infrastructure strategy as well. So we're really looking at what is happening in the built environment where these crashes are taking place, what has already happened through our high injury network, so taking existing crash data and prioritizing where those locations are highest and greatest, but also looking more proactively at what infrastructure is missing. Again, thinking about the safe system approach, how are we being more proactive and creating that system of safety? That'll be done through some audits and project prioritization as well. And then we'll program that out. So the implementation, I would say, is the next really most important piece, working to program projects that reduce crashes into the STIP, for example, our State Transportation Improvement Program, seeking some technical services, some implementation grants, and then layering on that education piece too. So working on some driver's education pilots, law enforcement training on how to, again, think about our first response training related to crashes. Okay. And then we really are here on this webinar today to ask you all to be part of this coalition. So you've received an email from Aaron Muschel with RSNH, who is our sub-consultant leading the task force development. So our Transportation Safety Task Force is going to be the technical coalition that is helping us lead the recommendations and the technical aspects of this plan. So it will be a mixed group of planners and engineers, emergency responders, academic researchers, all sorts of folks that I'm even kind of seeing represented on this call today, which is really exciting. We really need this to be a cross-disciplinary coalition of folks that from your professional experience and from your lived experience, seeing what you see in your communities today, can help us inform this plan to not just be a dust collector. By no means do we want this to be just shelved at the end and we pat ourselves on the back, we created a plan, we got this grant, we created a nice document. Implementation is, second, if not the most important thing within this planning process. And so to have that coalition buy-in to really pursue strategies that are going to be reasonable is very key. So your responsibilities will be to, again, identify those goals and objectives alongside us, to really guide that development, pressure test us. Let us know if there are things that you don't agree with from your perspective in your profession, things that can make this plan really hit the ground in the space that you work in. We will ask you to share back some of the information that you're learning and that you're hearing about with your communities. That may include letting us know who's not at the table as part of this coalition. We'll review draft and final plan recommendations, and ultimately we'll try to get those improvements constructed, again, with some technical resources and funding and things that can make this work actually happen. Again, not just be a plan that sits on a shelf. So that commitment, oh, yeah, Matt, you're muted.
Sorry. So we have a lot planned ahead of us. We have 6 workshops to be held throughout the course of the project. They will be a maximum of 2 hours long. First workshop will be in person alone, but there are the 5 remaining workshops to follow. Our first one, either late March or early April, will be offered both in person and virtual, or what we traditionally call hybrid in the outreach area. Workshop locations will float around and will be within the CRTPO planning area. I think we're thinking of a Western Charlotte neighborhood to kick us off. But your chief responsibility will be to participate not only in these meetings, but we'll also have breakout sessions. So we'll structure things through a subcommittee. It could be a region-based subcommittee, so geography-based, or it could be a subcommittee that is topical in nature, just things that allow for interdisciplinary discussion. And even if you yourself can't answer yes in the chat box, maybe you're thinking of someone else who you could invite, someone you could connect us with, whether it be community leaders, partners, or organizations that we could engage. We also have a separate, so this is our data analysis contract. There's also a separate public outreach and advocacy contract that we have that they could be involved in as well. But as we said towards the start of the call, the main purpose is to gauge your interest, especially as we're hitting the bottom of the hour. We want to know if we have your yes. If we do at this point, feel free to say, yes, please invite me, and we will add your name to our upcoming email just to check on respondent availability. Thanks, Brian, as I see in the chat. We'll add you to our email blast that will provide some additional background on the project and to poll everyone's availability for our first Transportation Safety Task Force meeting, either late March or early April. So this is what we're looking at. This is our project timeline. We sent our initial email invitation a couple weeks ago. So today's our pre-participation webinar. So if you want some time to think about it more, think about your involvement, and think about who you could invite or have participate on your behalf, please let us know by Friday, March 6th, whether you and your municipality will be participating. So that is the end of the webinar portion, the orientation portion of this. And I guess before we go to question and answer, Will, do you have anything else to add?
No, this was fantastic, and we hit right at 12:31. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And we're both smiling because we're seeing the yeses in the chat. So thank you
Yeah.
to everyone who is ready to get involved on this effort. Think of this as an exercise where you're advocating on behalf of your community, because we're going to be asking you to rank things like what should take priority for a high injury network, or what should take priority when we take a look at uh, other agencies that have implemented Vision Zero policies that have done well. Which of these policies do you envision you would be able to implement in your community? Or maybe there might be some strategies that you might want to reject and give feedback. This is your opportunity to also get your municipality or other agency closer to the goal of constructing roadway safety improvements. Because we're going to be ranking, we're going to be prioritizing, and we're going to be coming up with a list of location-based improvements and area-wide based improvements. And that is your next step to apply for funds to actually construct stuff, which is really cool. Not only through the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program, but also through other grant programs. It could even be Build or other federal grant programs that are still going to be active in the foreseeable future. So we want to let you know that our goal and your goal is one and the same. We want to get shovel in ground. We want to implement policies that help save lives, that make your roadways safer, make your communities more livable.
Thank you, Matt. And with that, thank you all again for joining us today. We realize we are right at time, a little, I guess, a few minutes over, but definitely still happy to take questions. We're still available for those. Feel free to drop those in chat or come off mute and ask them. But otherwise, Thank you so much for attending. We will keep the webinar rolling for any of those questions. As we shared, this is being recorded today, so anyone that you may know of that could be a great representative from your agency or from your community, feel free to direct them to our YouTube page where the recording will be posted. But at this time, we'll take any Q&A. We'll stick around for a few minutes and do that. Question from Aaron. Does participation count towards in-kind match? Yes. So any time that you are spending on behalf of your community, if you're one of our member jurisdictions contributing in-kind match, that will be counted as time that you're spending supporting us with traffic safety related planning. And that counts for work that you're doing in your community. Any traffic safety related work in your role, we would ask you to just keep track of that, whether it's in your community's, HR timesheet platform, or maybe you have a separate spreadsheet to keep track of that. We'll actually have some more information, Aaron, in an upcoming transportation staff meeting about some resources that we've developed to help you track that and how we'll be available to support you. And for those of you that aren't familiar, we are matching our federal grant with what's called in-kind match. So that's essentially personnel time, the cost of developing any sort of goods, flyers, anything like that, or space rentals, community spaces. You essentially are doing putting any of those rates and costs towards the match in lieu of a cash match, a traditional cash match. So we're doing that to eliminate that burden on our members to fork up any money for this, essentially. So great question, Aaron.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?